I think that this industry is extraordinarily challenging. I've been involved in it my whole life from a variety of different perspectives and positions, and it could be said that our industry is not very healthy right now. As far as the manufacturers are concerned, it's kind of like this headlong race to the bottom for margin and profit. Cameras are getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and at some point it's like, well, it's not a volume product. You're not making hundreds of thousands of cinema cameras a year. It's a low volume market, so the only thing that's left is margin, and if there's no margin, then where do you go?
Well, a lot of what's been asked of people over the last 5 years is really to do more with less. We have more channels, we have more forms of distribution, we have many more camera options, we have many more people working in the industry, but that hasn't increased the overall amount of money really being handed out. So we all have this experience where we know a lot more people who have the ability to make much higher quality stuff, and unfortunately that's depressed the market in terms of how much is paid per video. That means that our budgets are smaller. So, there used to be a time when we had, $100 million film, and then we had $50 million films, and then we had $25 million films. Now we're in a world where there's $100 million films, and then a lot of $10 million films and under. And with those kind of constraints on budget, that means you need basically different products that are going to give you more using less.
I think there's a lot of things that are happening in the visual and both the photography and the video world that's pushing the technology to be more accessible. And that includes everything from getting your Steadicam shot or your helicopter shot that used to cost tens of thousands of dollars and hours and hours and hours and months of training and certification. Now it's being simplified into a platform that's as accessible as your DSLR. So that's kind of where we see the industry going, is really complex technology being simplified in a way that anybody can access at a price point that anybody can access.
Clearly when we first started, the idea of production was really limited. The good stuff was limited to studios. It was limited to studios because of talent, but also because of money. So originally, when Red Rock was founded, our goal was to produce the accessories and the equipment that allowed us to produce better, more cinematic tools, but at a price that everyone could afford. And that was, at the time, really around depth of field adapters, follow focus, matte box. And I'd like to think that we really led the way in a lot of ways for other folks to come in and sort of flesh those things out. In the DSLR revolution which came along, we recognized that very early on because of our experience with depth of field adapters and knowing what an important tool selective focus is. So we were kind of right there, right at the start, and I like to think we were one of the architects to help sort of bring DSLRs into the fold, which is now kind of a mainstay product. Today, we're kind of at a point in the industry where there's a lot of things going on. There's no clear one direction. 4K, everyone wants to shoot. Whether or not it's a requirement is a whole different discussion, but everyone's wanting to shoot 4K. They're wanting to get as many angles as possible. And we're always seeing everything is getting smaller. Budgets are getting smaller, cameras are getting smaller. The ability to move around is increasing. So what we've really been focused on is how do we enable individual operators, small crews who are trying to get that high-end production feel, but do it in a way without adding additional crew and frankly not necessarily having the expertise. So you're not just seeing the tools of enablement, but you're actually seeing to some extent the ability to do these things without requiring 10 years of experience. And gimbals are kind of the same way. Steadicams used to have to work on for years and years to get any good at it, and now kind of more or less anyone can pick up a gimbal and get at least a reasonable shot. And that's an incredible thing to happen for camera movement. And now with things like focus, we're trying to help move that along, where an incredibly difficult experience like focus pullers, and one of the hardest jobs on set, is now ability for someone, basically to be able to do this and not really have to practice it for years and years. So I think going forward, you're going to see a lot more of that kind of capability from us.
Same as the digital still camera, somehow this rush to resolution not stopped, but it's somehow people realize that it's a good picture is not just spatial resolution, but it's colors, it's a dynamic range, it's the look, it's the feeling of the picture. And it looks like it's more going into this rush is stopping into, it balances somehow out, and people decide more on, don't look at the data, just look at the picture and tell me what do you like, what you don't like. We try to keep the technical data a little bit in the background and just offer what people like. And I don't know, I don't know where the story will go. We had 3D, it came up, got down. Now we got virtual reality, we are. That's probably coming up now. I see that as a big future problem for us and for everybody, because it's the art of storytelling in this environment. If you have the freedom of movement in a movie, that would be very interesting and very challenging. But that's perhaps the next week.